Hi everyone, how are we doing? Thanks for joining me once again for another video. If you haven't been here before, this is Thailand Bound. My name's Peter, and today I'm going to talk about the sort of foreigners you don't really want to hang about with if you're going to spend any length of time here in Thailand. I've been living here now, this is my third year of residing as a full-time expat. I've met a lot of people out here in those nearly 3 years. Most of them are nice people. I've made some very, very good friends. I've met a lot of subscribers / viewers, and some of them have also become good friends. So for the most part, when you come out here to Thailand, most of the people you'll meet, they're fairly good guys, they're nice guys. You'll make a lot of friends easier here than you will in your own country. But there are a number of people you need to distance yourself from. And I'm going to run through a list of I think there's about 15 here, 16, something like that. I've written the bullet points. I'll read the bullet point to you, then I'll discuss briefly each point. These are the kind of guys they'll bring you down, okay? If you live here full time or you spend any kind of time here, if you come here for sort of several months at a time, they'll just kind of bring you down, wear you out, and you don't need people like this around you, okay?
สวัสดีค่ะ
So number one, the first point is the guys who are constantly talking about girls and their latest conquest. Now I know when I was younger here, hanging out around the bars and the go-go bars when I was kind of 36, 37, I'd meet a lot of guys, and the talk of the day when you met for lunch the next day was which girl you met, which bar you met her in, what she was like, and that would be the constant talk. But when you live here constantly, it becomes so boring, you know. I've met guys in the daytime for lunch, and all they talk about is girls. I went to Nana Plaza last night, then I followed it up by going to Cowboy, and I met this girl in Rainbow, and I pulled this gorgeous stunner out of here. And, you know, I've heard this hundreds of times, if not thousands, and it will. When you first come out here, you won't mind, but when you've been out here for any length of time, it just gets extremely boring. And when you sit with those people who can't talk about anything else except the latest Bargo score, as it were, they've had, you want to try and stay away from those people because it does get very, very boring. Number two on my list is the guy you meet who is always short of cash, or he forgets his wallet. So there are people who live out here in Thailand, in both Bangkok and Pattaya, Hua Hin, wherever. They're living out here on such a small budget that they shouldn't really be out here. It's a minimal budget. Maybe they're living out here on an old age pension, which you can do, but you've got to live a very modest lifestyle. But there's guys out here, they like to go out to bars every night, and they're always cadging for a drink. You know, when it's their turn to buy, they'll be in the toilets, and they'll always be next to you when you're at the bar, and the excuse for not buying rounds is, oh, I forgot my wallet, all my cards are in my wallet. And these sort of guys are always, they're always trying to sponge off you, so you don't really want to have these guys around you. The next one on my list is the wealthy guy who comes out here and splashes the cash. Now, what I mean about that, I know a number of people who have had businesses in the UK, or they've built up a nice investment pot, they've sold everything, they've come out here to live in Thailand, and they are fairly wealthy and they've got money. But what they do, because they're fairly new to Thailand, they've still got that kind of buzz where they want to go to go-go bars. And I'm talking guys who are 50, 60, they go out to go-go bars, and because they've got a lot of money, they throw the money around, okay? And you know what it's like in the go-go bars in Thailand, well, anywhere really, beer bars. Once you get seen as a big spender, suddenly you're going to have a lot of friends in that bar. The girls, the doorman, the cashier, the staff, the waitresses and everything. You go to that bar regularly and you're always giving 100 baht tips and buying ladies drinks and everything. You're gonna soon be Mr. Popular. And a lot of these guys come out here and they do this, they spend all this cash, and they believe that everybody in these bars, if they went in broke and they didn't have any money, they'd still give them as much attention. So those kind of guys, the reason you want to stay away from them is because they're throwing so much cash about. You might be on a limited budget. For one, I can't afford to go into a go-go bar and start throwing 100 baht notes about to all the staff and buying lots of ladies' drinks. So it will make you feel a little bit insecure. If you're hanging out with a guy who's wealthy and he's thrown his cash around willy-nilly, you don't want to be with him really, because that's not a nice situation to be in. Number four is I've put the guys who shout in restaurants. So I've been out with a number of guys who, when you're in a restaurant, if the staff isn't immediately there, instead of kind of waiting or trying to get their attention, they'll just bellow at the top of their voice, "Oi," or "service," something like that. And, in Thailand, that's looked down on, so you don't really want to be hanging around with loud people, as it were. Now, this is something I experienced myself, and I have this next point, I have distanced myself from certain people who were friends here in Thailand because of some of these reasons. And I've got one guy in particular, I totally stay away from him now. And in fact, I've actually blocked him now so he can't send me messages because I just got fed up with him. Very, very selfish guy. So this is a guy, when I used to meet him for dinner, he was constantly on his phone. Now, you know what it's like. If you go out for a restaurant, you'll get a message, you'll pick it up, look, and you'll message back, and that's it. Might be 2 messages throughout the whole meal, or you'll look at something very quickly, but you basically have a conversation with the person you're at dinner. So this guy I used to meet, he'd be on his phone constantly, and I mentioned it to him. I said, it's a bit rude. It's quite boring for me because when I come out for dinner with you, you're just constantly on your phone. And his answer to that is, well, you're the only one who complains about it, which I don't believe, or maybe other people are more polite. So I've kind of distanced myself from him. And he'd send me pictures, and I'd ask him about the pictures, and he'd just ignore me. So he was quite a selfish man. So you don't really want people like that in your life. Number 6 on my list, people who have been here for a very short time, but they claim to be experts on all things Thailand. So we all know them, guys who have just got off the plane, they've been here maybe 6 weeks, and all of a sudden they're gurus and they're experts on everything from the bar girls to leases to laws, and most of the time they're giving out wrong information. So if you meet somebody and you discover they've only been here a month or 2 and they're giving you all this information which they swear is Bible, it's gospel, take it with a pinch of salt, and really you don't need these people around you. Now this might not bother you, it greatly annoys me, is people who are constantly late by a big time period. So it used to be when people turned up late, half an hour late for a dinner, they say, oh, the traffic was terrible. Now, the traffic's always been terrible in Bangkok, okay? But I, for one, I'd rather be early than late. Now, there are guys who, they live on what they call Thai time, okay? You arrange to meet them for dinner at 6:30 and they'll turn up at 7:30. Or you arrange to meet them in a bar at 9 o'clock and they'll turn up at 9:45. And for them, they don't see nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. I once had this conversation with a guy and said, look, I don't mind 5-10 minutes, but you're always late. And his answer to that was, well, I'm not going to be a slave to time. And I'm kind of saying to him, well, it's not about being a slave to time. You're basically wasting my time because I'm coming 45 minutes too early for you, sitting here looking at a menu. He didn't get it. So again, this is just people like, I don't want to know. I don't want to meet people who are constantly half an hour to an hour late. It's just not a good situation to be in. Number 8 on my list, the know-it-all constantly criticises Thailand Thais and other expats but refuses to leave. Now, you know the sort of guy, you'll be talking to him and he'll trip up on the pavement and he'll say, oh, well, in my country, the pavement's all really good. This is Thailand, only in Thailand. Or the cars come when you walk across a zebra crossing, as we call them in the UK. I forget what they're called in America. You can let me know again. And the cars don't stop here. You walk across a zebra crossing in the UK, for instance, it's illegal for a car to go onto it if there's pedestrians there. Here they don't care, they'll just go. So you've got to watch yourself when you're crossing the road. But these guys will criticise and give it, oh, in my country this wouldn't happen. And they're just constantly criticising all things Thailand. And the thing is, one of the charms of being in Thailand is not everything works all the time. And if you're one of those guys, everything has to be correct, everything has to be worked, everything has to go smoothly, then perhaps you shouldn't be here. But again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about hanging out with people. And if you know somebody who's like, it might be a good idea to distance yourself from him. Okay. Similar to that is the bar stool expert. Spends every day in the same bar, dishing out outdated or completely false information as if it's gospel. Now, we've all met these guys. You go into a bar, for instance, in Pattaya, they sit there all day, and they're just giving out lots of advice to people, but actually most of it's wrong, and they don't want to listen to anybody else. They're just giving out all this information, so you don't really want to be listening to that garbage, do you? Number 10, this is quite an important one, is the investor, the guy that has great ideas about investing in Thailand. So here's a guy, or guys who come out to Thailand. They don't have enough to fund their lifestyle here in Thailand. They don't want to go back to their own country. So they get this idea to open a business. And normally it's a beer bar in Pattaya. And that's just what Pattaya needs, isn't it? Another beer bar. But they don't have enough money. And what they do, some of them are good talkers. And they'll talk to you at a bar, reel you in very slowly until it gets to the point where he's convinced you that if you were to put in, I don't know, £50,000 or $50,000, you're going to get these big returns and you can stay here in Thailand. And normally what happens, the guy who gives the money to the investor, either the guy who never ever opens a bar and he steals the money and that's how he lives out here, just conning people out of false investments, or they do invest in the bar and they know nothing about business here in Thailand, or business full stop, and the bar goes under and everybody loses their money. Okay, number 12 on my list today of people you want to stay away from in Thailand is the wannabe YouTubers, okay? And I know I've got a YouTube channel, but what I mean by the wannabe YouTubers are these guys who come out here and they do things for dramatic effects. You know, they don't respect anybody. They go around sticking their camera in people's face without their permission. Now, if I go out and make videos and I'm in an airport, for instance, and I want to film the airport and the aeroplane, of course, I'm going to catch people in the camera. But what I won't do is go up to reception and just in a hotel and stick my camera directly in the face of the receptionist or a staff member, because that is rude. You've got to be very tactful when you film. You've got to know what you're filming and be very tactful and don't stick your camera in people's faces. But a lot of these wannabe superstar YouTubers, what they do, they'll come out here and they do things that are pretty unnatural and they do it for dramatic effects. And I'll give you an example. I've watched videos where guys have gone up to there might be a lady on a stall who sells milkshakes every day. Now, she'll make a meagre wage, a meagre living, but she's not starving. She's doing okay with her cart where she sells her fruit juice and whatever. So she's making a living. And you'll get these guys go up and they'll hold out 1,000 baht and 100 baht notes and they'll order a drink and they'll say, oh, I haven't got any money. And the Thais, being good-hearted and good nature, they'll normally hand over a free drink. And the guy will say, here's 1,000 baht for you because you work so hard. It's all for dramatic effects. If the guy really wanted to give that money to help Thai people, what he'd do is he'd find an orphanage or something similar, and he'd give that money to the orphanage, because it'd do a lot more for an orphanage that relies on donations than somebody who's selling and making a living, be it a meager living. And they do other outrageous things. They talk rudely to people and things like that. So if you've got a friend who's a YouTuber and he acts like this, he's likely to get thumped, bashed by a doorman one day or something like that. We've all seen it before, YouTubers who get punched in the face, kicked in the backside and all this sort of thing. I've been doing it 5 years. I haven't had any problems, so hopefully I'm doing something right, okay? Number 13 is what I call the wannabe locals. Now, these are guys who they get really into the Thai culture. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, they come out here and they want to embrace the Thai culture. That's fine. But you get the guys out here who wear sarongs and sandals and they speak a little bit of Thai, but when they're in a restaurant, they'll order very, very loudly in Thai and then they speak very softly in English, because they want to give out this persona that they're part of Thai society and they've really blended in and they speak fluent Thai, and these people are just basically fake. So you don't want these kind of people in your life. Number 14, how many have we got? We're nearly there, I think we've got 20, I think it is, yeah. So at number 14 are what I call the crash and burn rookies who have just arrived. They spend big like kings. They run out of money and they have to go home really quick. And again, like the wealthy people I was talking about, these are guys who come out here on limited funds. They get the attention from the girls in the go-go bars. They've never had attention. It's new to them. And the more money they throw around, the more attention they get. And they love it. But unfortunately, what happens, they run out of money very, very quickly and they end up going back home. And again, you really don't want to be hanging around with these sort of people, because the girls and everybody else who they're throwing out money to, they'll expect you to be the same as him, all right? Now, this might be an obvious one, and it's the same for any country, but I would say more so here in Thailand. And that's the guy who's hanging around because he wants your girl, okay? One of the challenges out here for foreign guys, especially older guys of my age, guys come out here and initially, if they haven't been out here before, it is the go-go bars and the beer bars and fun and party time. But that does get tiresome. You can get bored of that. And eventually you want a partner. Most guys want some company. You know, they want somebody they can go out to dinner with, share stories, go for walks at night, that sort of thing. And it's very, very difficult to find a nice girl out here. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And with a language problem and all this sort of thing, a lot of guys end up with bar girls, which normally goes south. You don't want to have a bar girlfriend normally I say. And so what happens, you might be one of the lucky ones who gets into a relationship with a girl who's a really straight girl. She might work in a hospital, she might be higher up in a bank, one of those kind of jobs, high up in an office somewhere. and you introduce her to several of your friends. She speaks a good level of English because she's educated, but she is now your full-time girlfriend. And these guys, they just want to get in on the act. They see she's a nice girl, she speaks English, they're jealous of you, and what they do, they'll go behind your back and they'll start, you go to the toilet and they're after their line ID and all this sort of thing. So when you get any inkling of that, some guys after your girl, just cut them straight off, okay? Because they're not really your friend, okay? They're trying to steal your girlfriend. Number 16 is the backpacker types who are constantly sponging off you, which is what I touched on earlier. Now, there's nothing wrong with backpackers. I love it. You see a couple of 22-year-old students on a gap year, if that's what it's still called. They come out here with very minimal money. They totally eat Thai food. They sleep in hostels, maybe 10 to a room. Why not? They're young. They should enjoy life. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the older hippie type style people. The guy who's 60, he's got white hair and a ponytail and an earring, and he's wearing kind of hippie trousers. I don't know what you call them, all colourful, and sandals, and he's got gold. He's dressed like an 18-year-old hippie, but the guy's basically 60, and he's trying to live on minimal money like they are. But the problem is, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what he wants to do. But these are the guys, again, who are trying to sponge off you because they think, you've got plenty of money, and why shouldn't you share it with them? You don't want them as friends. Number 17, people who constantly invite themselves to whatever you're doing. So what happens here, sometimes you'll get guys who are a bit lonely, and you might mention that you're going off somewhere, or you're going to a particular bar to meet some friends, and they'll just invite themselves. And this happens very, very often, and it could be a little bit uncomfortable if you're invited by some Thai friends or maybe expat friends to a dinner or a bar or something, and they've invited you, and this guy's tagging along and just turns up. You can't really tell him, you're not going to join us, but it can get quite embarrassing again. So if you meet people who are, constantly turning up just because you've mentioned it, you don't want to be hanging around with people like that. Number 18, people who are always asking to borrow money. Well, again, I don't really need to give any explanation on this. If somebody's constantly borrowing money off you, it's not a nice situation to be in. And a lot of time, people who borrow money off you out here, they very rarely pay it back. And Thailand can be expensive if you're going out in entertainment areas and things like that. So you don't want to be throwing money away like that. Number 19, people who don't let you get a word in edgeways, dominating conversations. So the scenario, you go out with a group of friends, maybe you and 3 others, and there's this guy, and he's just constantly talking. He dominates the whole conversation. Nobody can get a word in. He's pretty boring anyway, and you don't really want to, he's talking, you don't really want to listen, and you make an excuse and you go to the toilet, and perhaps you hope he doesn't come on the next outing to a restaurant or the bar. These are people you just want to stay away with. We all like to talk, of course we do, and when you're in a group situation, it's only fair to let other people speak. If you're with somebody who just wants to dominate the whole evening, the whole conversation, then they're not good people to have hanging around. Okay, and that brings me to my very last one today, my number 20, and I've put anyone who is toxic in any way. Any expat you meet out here who is a little bit toxic even, they want to bring you down, so they're negative about everything. Their own country, Thailand, the Thais, the food they eat, the taxi service. It doesn't matter what you mention to them. It's just negative, negative, negative. There's an old saying in England that if you hang around with 5 losers, you'll be loser number 6. If you hang around with 5 happy-go-lucky people, you'll be happy-go-lucky person number 6, okay? You're coming out to Thailand to have a good time. You've worked hard all your life. You're going to meet a lot of nice people out here, okay? A lot. You'll make friends out here easier. I've made a lot of friends out here, some really nice people, okay? But you'll get people who will try and drag you down. And this list I've just given you, you want to stay away from these kind of people, okay? The video today is not meant to be negative. It's just a kind of advice video because I've been out here for the 3 years now, and I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about. Okay, guys, I'd like to ask you one small favor of you. If you could just click the like, give me a thumbs up. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Okay, thanks for watching again. If you've got any suggestions or anything I've missed out on the list, as I said at the beginning, drop it in the comments. Everybody will read it, and if you need an answer, I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching again, and I'll be with you real soon.